What's up, people? I'm Shaggy, the opinionated hippie, with a further deep dive into the King Gizzard and the Lizard Wizard live bootleg official release discography. Today we got Live in London 19. This is probably the last King Gizzard up video I'm going to make for a while. They recently have dropped every single show. I think it's every single show from like the late summer 2024 tour. I'm going to check out a bunch of those and then probably, I don't know, somewhere down the line, a couple weeks, maybe a month, I'm going to I'll break those up into smaller chunks and address those shows. I'm super excited to get into like what they're doing now. But I thought I would end with this release, 2019 Live in London, from what I think might be the best show, or at least the best show I've heard from 2019. I have not heard all the shows from 2019, but I really do think this one is like just the songs that are played, the energy of it, the sequencing, like everything about it. It is one of those glorious shows that is just infused with the energy of Infest the Rat's Nest. I would say that one of the greatest things that happened to King Gizzard was their specific, like, hey, let's specifically indulge thrash music, thrash metal, and make that part of just a little more of everything of what we do. And even when we're getting into the songs that are decidedly not thrash, there's a heavier metal element to so much of this. It just makes the psych heavier. It makes the softer stuff heavier. It makes the the softer moments and the longer songs just that more like, seems like they just give them a little extra something because they know it's a contrast to like this just monstrous beast that they're dropping in the rest of the show. And I really think that this set list is just like, it's almost absolutely perfect. You get 4 Infest the Rat's Nest songs, which I think kind of bind the front and the back. You get a couple Non and Gone Infinity songs. You get I'm in Your Mind Fuzz. You get the opening 3 songs, but you don't get the last the I'm in Your Mind Fuzz, actually. You just get the first 3 parts. You get a Gumboot Soup song, which is always a plus. That seems to not get as much love as I think it should get. It's just a fantastic set list. And really, the first 9 songs are just like, I think there's going to be maybe some point in time when somebody writes sort of a history of live King Gizzard or just a history of King Gizzard. They're going to look back at 2019 and they're going to see a silver lining in the global pandemic that dropped in March of 2020. Like, hey, if it wasn't for this pandemic and this forcing this band to maybe like slow down a little bit, they may have just spontaneously exploded on stage at one point because the energy with which they're running on is just so ridiculously high. I don't know how they sustain it. This is an October 5th show. It's in London. Crowd is really loud. Crowd is really enthusiastic. Not the clearest sound of the Boots from 2019 that I've heard, or even like of the official release stuff, but you can hear what they're doing. And I think the energy of the crowd and just the energy of the show, maybe for me at least, makes up for any slight sort of lacking clarity of some of just the noisy jumble that just gets dropped in your earlobes. Still sounds great, but I do think the crowd noise kind of over impedes a little bit, but it just makes you feel more like you're there. But the first 9 shows, it's really like, I think all shows have their own like flow, like I've listened to so many Dead shows and Mo shows and Fish shows and Zappa shows that, where they're mixing things up live, or even like Zappa where he's playing the same set list in some years. Regardless of that, shows have their own identity. And this one is just go at 100% all the time. And if you can, go at 110%, even though that's not physically possible. We'll take a break at some point to let you breathe. It's going to be short, it turns out. And even then, it's going to be not that relaxing. But we'll slow it down at some point. But the slowdown really doesn't happen after the first 9 songs. Evil Star plays over the Rats Live backwards, plays over the loudspeakers. The crowd is going friggin' crazy. They come out, drop that drum beat in the beginning of Self-Immolate before they count down and just tear off into Self-Immolate. We're off. We're thrashing. It's like we're destroying the arena, man. London's going to burn tonight. Maybe not. And then after that, we go right into Mars for the Rich. Arguably the greatest second song ever. Like if you're going to open with something heavy and then you want to drop into something that's just going to keep that momentum going, nothing, I would argue, keeps that momentum going like a Mars for the Rich. It is just that opening riff, the little bass solo action at the end, like the lyrics, everything about Mars for the Rich is just perfect. We're opening up with like maybe a triple and then a home run. We got two runs in after the first two songs. World Series are going on right now when I'm filming this, so watching that. Then we get an absolutely just high-paced, full adrenaline, ridiculous I'm in Your Mind into, I think, the best I'm Not in Your Mind I've ever heard. This thing is like they're tearing this thing inside out and like needling it from all angles, and then they drop into the things you know, and then they just, I mean, it's like 2 minutes of just like aggressive bliss. Then they go into Cellophane, but before they play Cellophane, there's a little Alter Beast intro that is just absolutely amazing. And then they go into Cellophane, they give it 100%, and then they just end. We don't get an I'm in Your Mind fuzz to like wrap things up, but it's almost like we can't take it. Like this seems like the natural break. 5 songs, pure adrenaline, one of the most exhilarating I'm in Your Mind, I'm Not in Your Mind Cellophane trios I've ever heard. Just ridiculous. Then they drop The Great Chain of Being, and one of many, many underrated classics of Gumboot Soup. And the thrash element is still there, but now we're leaning a little more into the doom. And if you want to know why Gumboot Soup is such a fantastic album, I think it's a top 5 for me. It's songs like this, and to hear them live, and to hear what they do to this live, and to hear the way they play the dynamics of the song. As great as that album is, live, these things are just even more beastly and more deadly. And it's a little more doomier than like the early stuff. You're bringing a little more weight and heaviness to this, but it's still, it's fantastic. So that's not the break I thought was happening. I thought after Cellophane, they got to reel it in a little. This does not reel it in. This is like almost pushing the envelope in a completely different direction. Then we get Plastic Boogie. And Plastic Boogie is unapologetically great in any set list, wherever it appears. I don't care. If Plastic Boogie pops up, you're in for a great time. You put your seatbelt on, the ride's not slowing down. But Plastic Boogie isn't a song that you end a run on, right? It's definitely a momentum. It continues the momentum, continues that flow. So if we drop down now, kind of a letdown, right? So you gotta have something big. They drop a Crumbling Castle. 7 songs in, not counting 6. Yeah, 8 songs in. This is the 8th song. They drop a Crumbling Castle, and this Crumbling Castle is just, it's everything you want out of a Crumbling Castle. The ending of it is just great. The way they ride that end and go into that like synthy part at the end. I think this is the best Crumbling Castle I've heard released so far from them on the list I'm going to drop later. This is the best of all those. This is just, yeah, you're like, all right, they've done it. This is the obvious peak. All of these 7 songs just led right into Crumbling Castle. We get to indulge for like 8+ minutes. We get a nice sort of like cool down ending that's not too cool downy because it's still trippy as AF, but it's just fantastic. Now we're going to take a break. But then they drop this thing. And this thing at first feels like the break, like we're starting over. Got that nice drum intro. It's not too crazy. Harmonica comes in. We're kind of feeling good. But then as this song goes on, you realize like this is really like the cherry on top of the first 8 songs. Like you maybe save this for last. Maybe you're one of those people, you eat your sundae, and then when that maraschino cherry is done and it's soaked up all that other flavor, you eat that last and it's like, oh, that was perfection. This thing is that maraschino cherry. That ending jam on this, they just kind of push it a little bit farther than I think they ever push it. It just like, you're like, okay, I thought this was the break I was looking for. This is not the break I'm looking for. I want to dance harder than I've ever danced before. This is absolutely amazing. It's exactly what kind of Crumbling Castle needed to just like wrap up this first 9 songs. Absolute perfection. exhilarating, exhausting. You kind of need a break at this point. You're hoping they give it to you. This thing was perfect. And to me, for these ears, the next song, they kind of give it to you. They drop a Boogeyman Sam. Great playing in this. That awesome little guitar weirdness in the middle is great. The energy is great. But it is a little bit of like all right, I don't have to engage as much. I can just dance. I can have a good time. I can maybe take a little breather. It feels like the band's maybe going to take a little breather. Feels very much like this is our restarting point. Like this is like set one ran through this thing. We took a break mentally. We're now going to rebuild toward the climax. Boogeyman Sam is a good way to restart that. Kind of refocus, tighten up for a little bit, not get too crazy. And then they go into Mr. Beat. One of my favorite songs of all time. I think the first 40 seconds of Mr. Beat is just utter psych rock perfection. Just the way they build all those melodies, they build those beats, and then they finally drop into the lyrics. But it really feels at this point, you have self-emulate through this thing, which feels like its own really harrowing journey of like thrash, psych, out there music. Boogeyman Sam is like, hey, sit in the waiting room for a while. Here's some water. Here's some refreshments. When you feel like satisfied, get in this elevator right here. And Mr. Beat is this elevator. It's like this Willy Wonka elevator that doesn't go up, but also goes sideways and diagonal ways and all sorts of ways, right? So like, and Mr. Beat's kind of like the intro's ushering you in, and then the song itself kind of just builds you up. Like, okay, we're going somewhere crazy. Are you ready? We're ready. Okay, at the end, we're going to keep asking you, are you ready? We're going to calm it down a little. We're going to kind of repeat the same question. Make sure you're ready for what's going to happen. Because then we go into an evil death roll. Fantastic evil death roll. Like, they're nailing these evil death rolls. They're like those little breaks that kind of come throughout. They just seem like they're either letting them like breathe a little more, or they're hitting them a little harder. There's sort of invisible face buildup right before we get to the Non and Gone Infinity refrain. Is just like as aggressive as it could be. The ending almost gives you this false sense like, hey, we can relax for a while. We can calm things down. Like maybe this is the peak. Like you made it through some evil. Now you can rest. But no, well, we're not going to let you rest, because we're going back to Infest the Rat's Nest. We're going to drop a Venetian 2 on you that's just blistering, solos blistering, aggressive blistering, everything's blistering. And then we're going to follow that with a Planet B. Flipping things around a little. We're not opening the show with a Planet B. You maybe thought we didn't open with it. You're not going to have to hear it. No. We're still dropping it. It's going to be blistering. It's going to be crazy. Absolutely fantastic. Had they ended the set here, everybody would be happy. But then, and this is the Planet B that was on Chunky Shrapnel. So it's that same performance. But then parts of this, very brief part of this, also appeared on Chunky Shrapnel. They then close out, I guess, the main set, though I guess the encore. I don't know what the encore is and what the main set is. They then play Rattlesnake. They just drop a Rattlesnake. We get a Crumbling Castle in the middle of the set. We get a Rattlesnake to close the main set. Just, what else could you ask for? And the Rattlesnake has this little like, sort of that before they actually commit to the song, but they're going into the song, they're playing some guitar lines that really evoke an image of like a rattlesnake, like slithering through like, the Mojave Desert, just creeping up on you and kind of like preparing for an attack. And it's there and you're scared and you're wary. And then bam, dun, dun, we're just like, we're right into the song. The buildup is great. It's a great closer. The energy is fantastic. It's absolutely amazing. And then at this point, if they had given us a head-on pill, which they don't, I almost think that would have been too much. Like, you just can't. You just can't. It was 15 songs of pure adrenaline. You can't give us a head-on pill. You got to give us something that's going to let us sort of take these feelings and, like, channel them and, like, deal with them and, like, maybe, like, uplift them and, like, I don't know. There's something, you needed something a little more cathartic. So they gave us a Float Along, Fill Your Lungs. That is just that psych riff that opens, and then what I call the Morning Jew riff, that sort of heavier, more grand theme that comes in after you set up the weird like trilly psychiness. The way the song just floats in the middle, they kind of bring it down for a while. Something must be happening on stage when they bring it down, because the crowd just starts going absolutely insane, and then they kind of bring it back up and finish it. It is a perfect ending. Nowhere near as good as, I think it's the Brussels float along, right? There was one of the earlier releases I talked about had a float along to close the show. I believe it was the Brussels show, which had maybe just an absolute perfect float along, fill your lungs. Was that Brussels? I think it was Brussels. Yeah, it was the Brussels show. The October 9th show. Absolutely perfect float along. This one's not that as perfect, but it's the perfect song to end this set. I highly recommend this, man. If you like your King Gizzard aggressive and thrashy, and you like these songs that I talked about, like, you just cannot go wrong with this. This is just, it's exhilarating, it's exhausting, it's a mind, it's friggin' amazing. They're in your mind and it's all fuzzy. I recommend it. Where would I rank this among all the others I've ever heard? All the other ones I've ranked on this video. It's right there at number 1. I just think this takes the cake. It's a blast, people. It's a blast. And that's all I got. All right. Thanks for watching. Subscribe, like, share, comment. Do those things you do. And yeah, that's all I got. I'm going to go listen to some 2024 King Gizzard and get back to you in like a month or so and recommend the good ones. And I'm pretty sure they're all going to be good, but maybe recommend the best ones. That's all I got. Thanks for watching. Peace. Talk to you later.